Today on Console Empires, 19 Pop Scouts. In this video, I'll show you how to do a Scout Rush build order with an Xbox controller in Age of Empires 2. Alright, so this was a ranked game that I played on my other profile. I wasn't planning to make content then, but ended up pulling off a half-decent scout build, so I decided I'd cast the replay as a build order guide. Let's get started. The first thing you're going to want to do is hit down on the D-pad to select your town center, and then LT and Y to queue up some villagers. Next, grab 2 of your idols and make a house, then press D-pad up to select the remaining villager and make another house. You can select sheep with D-pad right and your scout with D-pad left. As the sheep reaches your town center, set the gather point with A and shift queue your builders to it with left trigger and A. I make a bit of a mistake here and get my sheep and scout moving before the second house. Don't worry if your build isn't totally perfect. As you'll see, I have a handful of errors in this match, but still reach Feudal Age at a perfectly viable time of 9:17. If you do this build absolutely cleanly with no idle time, you'll get to Feudal at 8:50. While your shepherds eat the first sheep, you can send the others out to scout a bit. Number 2 will need to come home pretty quickly, but 3 and 4 can do a quick loop around the base to help you find resources and explore any gaps left behind by your scout. You'll want to try your best to keep the scout cavalry moving the entire time. This is easier said than done. It actually takes quite a bit of practice to be able to do a clean build and manually scout at the same time. It's most efficient to look at your scout every few seconds and task him around the base in half circles, but setting waypoints with left trigger and A is totally fine if you need to focus elsewhere. Try to avoid using auto scout at least until you've scouted your resources and have found the enemy base. It takes 6 on food to keep the TC producing constantly, so you can send your next 3 villagers to wood. Try to place the lumber camp right up against the long side of a wood line and split your villagers up so they're working on both sides. Before each sheep expires, you'll want to shift queue the villagers to the next sheep. This helps in 2 ways. First, dead animals decay, so you'll want to eat them one by one to get the most food. And second, your shepherds will idle for a second if they have to target another sheep on their own. Small moments of idle time like this can really add up over the course of a game. With 6 on sheep and 3 on wood, now it's time to hunt. Send your next villager out towards the boar, shoot it once, and head back towards the town center. If you time it perfectly, the boar will come in right as the sheep runs out. I've still got a bit of meat left on mine, so I set 1 villager to finish it off and shift queue her to the boar. I'm prioritizing the boar because hunt both harvests and decays faster. With the boar in, you can start sending villagers to berries. Just like on the wood line, you want the mill touching the longer side of the berries, with villagers collecting on both sides. You'll want to use the villager menu, not the site menu for this, as the site menu will sometimes task a villager from across the map, rather than the one you intended. Berries harvest slower, so you'll want fewer vills here than other food sources. Unless you're playing as Franks or Portuguese, who both have foraging bonuses. I randomed into Persians here, who don't have a berry bonus, but do start with a bit of extra wood and food, making it easier to avoid early idle time. At this point, you should be at 13 population. It's time to build another house. Try to place it near a resource to minimize walking time, and in a spot that can be part of a wall. I dropped this one by my wood to make quick walling easier later. It's also fine to build it by the mill or on your way to the second boar. When the first boar is down to about 100 food, it's time to lure the second. See those geese I haven't found yet? A bit of a misplay here by me to leave them out so long. If my enemy was scouting forward already, he could have easily stolen them. This is why it's so useful to watch your recorded games. It's a lot easier to spot areas where you can improve when you're not focusing on everything else. This map, Acclivity, isn't one that I'm as familiar with, so I wasn't quite sure how many sheep I'd find or how far away they might be. Luckily, my enemy didn't lame me, so I was able to eventually find the missing food in time to keep all my villagers working. When you've got enough villagers in queue to reach 19 population, go ahead and research Loom. If played correctly to this point, you'll have the 500 food to advance before research completes. Sometimes you will need to force drop or wait a few seconds to click up. If you're way off, go ahead and queue up 1 or 2 villagers while you harvest the remaining food. TC idle time is actually kind of a big deal. Just a second or 2 here and there can quickly put you behind in population. Think of it this way, it takes 25 seconds to train a new villager, and in this build, we'll be making 18 of them in Dark Age. That means idling your TC for just a second or 2 between each one puts you a whole villager behind by the time you click up. I end up kind of giving that away here, but my opponent makes more mistakes than I do, and I'm able to get up faster with more population. If you have plenty of food in the bank, you can send the last 1 or 2 villagers from your TC straight to the first wood line, and then retask 5 or so hunters to build a second lumber camp after you click up. Making a lumber camp will drop off your food, so you don't have to stop at the TC first, unless that extra drop is needed to reach 500. You want to have around 10 lumberjacks working while you advance to the Feudal Age to afford your buildings. Now we need to make a house, a barracks, and queue up a couple more villagers. Ideally, the barracks goes up just as you reach feudal age, so you can immediately build a stable and start making scouts. I'm placing the buildings between my wood lines to help wall in my base. A loomed villager can kill a Dark Age scout, but not a feudal scout, so it's a good idea to have 2 villagers building in case you're attacked. As soon as you've placed your 2 feudal age buildings, head to the lumber camp and grab the first wood upgrade. At this point, you should be aiming to continuously produce scouts and villagers, and wall in your base, and place farms, and attack the enemy. Don't forget to research horse collar at the mill to put some more food on your farms. Once you've fully transitioned into farming, it's worth getting wheelbarrow to make your villagers work faster. Gold mining is often researched after clicking the castle. I was ahead here, and my opponent hadn't fully walled, so I waited for 3 scouts to attack, looking to do more damage. Harassing with your starting scout earlier can deny walls and distract your enemy, even if you're not able to get kills right away. Attacking earlier is generally better, but does come with risks. It's a lot easier to lose a single scout to enemy villagers, so you have to pay more attention to it without forgetting about your eco at home. The goal of rushing isn't always to get kills. You're just trying to force the enemy to have more idle time than you, setting up an advantage going into the next stage. Of course, getting kills is great, but you usually aren't going to be able to end the game in feudal. If you are finding damage and want to commit to feudal age pressure, don't forget to add blacksmith upgrades once you've massed several scouts. My opponent makes a pretty big mistake here, trickling into separate engagements where he's outnumbered, allowing me to get easy kills without losing any of my scouts. A stronger play would have been to make a spear or 2 to protect himself while walling up and sending a group to counterattack. To defend against this build, you'll want to wall early. If you're fully walled by the time your opponent arrives, they won't be able to find much damage. Later in the game, my opponent does attempt to counterattack, but he only sends 1 scout, who runs into a spear that I had positioned near an opening in my walls. That's it! 19 pop scouts on console. Scouts are super strong on the controller-only ladder right now, so even with a few mistakes, I was able to advance quickly and successfully raid my opponent. Try this out in your games, and let me know how it goes in the comments. If this build helps you win one, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.